Hello class. Today we are moving on to another very significant, very important concept that we have to learn as part of this module, the concept of ideology. Ideology. Now, is that very familiar to you? You must have seen in some movies where the heroes say that I do not believe in this ideology, or I do not subscribe to this ideology. And I think in some Sandesham, a Malayalam comedy movie, this word ideology gets used abundantly. The Malayalam word for ideology is that Pratyaya Shastram. Pratyaya Shastram. So, if you have seen that movie, Sandesham, you must have seen it being used very comically. But let me tell you, ideology is not a very naive word. It's not a very what to say, trivial word, but rather this is probably one of the most significant notions that we have to learn as students of literature. Now, what is ideology, or what are ideologies, and what is their role in our lives? We can think about all that. Now, if you look at your life, or if you look at the society around, you will see that there are many core ideas which actually drive our everyday actions. That is, there are many small things that we do. There are many small thoughts that we have and actions that we take up. But there must be some driving ideas behind these actions, right? There must be some basic reasons why you do certain things certain way. And many of the time, these basic ideas may not have been decided by you, but rather you may have imbibed those ideas from the society that you live in. That is, you decided that you need an education. You started going to school, you decided to attend college, and you decided that you need to work. And when you were born and when you were being brought up, your parents decided that this is the way you should be brought up. If you are a girl child, you should be brought up this way. If you are a male child, you should have been brought up this way. And if you belong to a transgender community, there must have been ways in which the society tried to impose you or conform you into certain ways. So similarly, many such ideas which actually drive many of our actions are not in our control, but rather they work on the basis of a certain kind of social consensus, because a lot of people believe that this is the right way of doing it, or there is a consensus that this is how it should be. We actually adhere to it, or we believe in it, and we act according to it. So these ideas or ideals that a society conforms to or a society relies on can be called ideology. So if I have a random thought, can that become an ideology? No. It is that most of the time, the ideology that drives a society is the ideology of the dominant class in the society. That is, in every society there are hierarchies. It's not like equality, even though it's an ideal that the world longs for or is working towards, not necessarily all the time, but there have always been and there are always certain hierarchies on the basis of which the society works. So there are always dominant classes, and there are always subordinated classes. So this distinction is always there. So whenever a key decision about how a society is to function or how the society should function comes up, it's most of the time the ideology of the dominant class which becomes accepted, to which the subordinate classes would have to adhere to. So imagine that, do we have any power in decision making about certain things? We work in our everyday lives on the basis of certain ideas, but did we ever question those ideas? Did we ever get an opportunity to correct those ideas? No, but we have had to accept those ideas and accept the crux of those ideas and apply them into our everyday lives, into our thought process. And this is most of the time an unconscious process. Because you have been seeing certain things happening in the society in a certain way, you thought or you imbibed that this is how the society works, or these are the ideas on the basis of which my society works. So these ideas are called ideology. So it is the same ideas that go into political policy making, economic policy making, and almost every aspect of our lives are actually driven by these ideas or ideologies. So how can we define them? This is not a textbook definition as such, but there must be certain ideals or ideas that actually form the crux of the thought process of the society, of the way in which a society functions, those basic ideas can be called ideology. And as I told, most of the time what happens is it is the ideas of the dominant class or the more powerful classes in the society that become accepted as universal ideologies, and they reflect in the society. Many of the time, the ideas of the oppressed or the subordinate classes do not get proper representation and do not become the working ideologies of the society in which we live in. So that is why there is always a conflict, where the conflict is not just between people but rather between ideologies of the dominant class and the subordinate class. So think of certain ideologies that could be driving your life now. Now, the ideology of equality could be one, right? But at the same time, the ideology of cultural superiority or economic superiority or community superiority is also working in our societies in many ways. We must have seen certain communities getting more privileges. For example, there are many privileges that the women in many societies do not enjoy, but the men in many societies enjoy. So this is made possible on the basis of a certain kind of ideology that has been stitched into the social fabric of that society. So I hope this is clear to you. This is not that easy a concept. Ideology is more complicated. I'm actually trying to simplify it so that you understand it better. So whenever you're doing something, whenever you're thinking in a particular way, always understand that there are deeper ideas at work. Most of the time these ideas are not originally yours, but rather you have imbibed them from the society. And in the society, they have come into power because they were generated by the dominant classes. But it's not necessary that all the ideologies that make the society function are generated by the dominant classes. This is a general case scenario, but you could see that the Indian constitution has many ideologies like equality, fraternity, and socialism that actually function in our everyday lives. So you need not view ideology in a negative sense all the time, but many of the time what happens is the ideology of the society is the ideology of the dominant classes, but there are more democratic systems which the human race has implemented, which assure that there are ideals or ideas which assure equality, which assure better catering to all strata of the society. These ideologies are also there. So I hope the notion of ideology is clear to you. So ideology or ideologies are the basic ideas on the basis of which a society functions. These are not small ideas, but rather probably when you build a house, what happens? You build a foundation first. So we imagine that all the activities that we do are somehow together constituting a house. All these thoughts that we have, all these actions that we undertake on an everyday scale, the way in which the people interact in the society, all that actually constitutes a house. So I would rather say that the foundation of that house are these basic ideas or basic ideologies. So I hope that makes it more clear. So these foundation ideas can be influenced by the dominant classes, can be more democratic. It is a question of you looking into that ideology. So whenever you are doing something, think of this. What is the general ideology on the basis of which I am doing this, or I am made to do this? And is that ideology right? Is that ideology an ideology of the dominant classes, or is that a more democratic ideology? You can think of all these things. I hope this is clear. If you have any doubts, you can post it in the comments and we'll discuss it further. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys are keeping safe and well. Take all the necessary precautions to prevent the infection of the COVID-19 pandemic. So keep safe and read about all these ideas using the internet and all. Thank you for listening, guys.